This is Michael Lukes with After School, and this is a special interview. In the past, we've hosted the Social Change with Technology interview series and the 5 Minutes with a Teen Changemaker interview series. Today, I'm joined by Paula Orrego, a psychology with an emphasis on social action major. She is a bullying survivor, created an anti-bullying program at her former school, gives talks, and much more on the subject. Let's get right into the interview. Paula, thanks for joining me. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing? Thanks for having me.
I'm doing great. Thanks for joining me. How would you describe your firsthand experiences with bullying?
Starting from 6th grade up to 12th grade, I faced bullying such as verbal abuse, physical abuse, racism, cyberbullying, bullying because of my learning disability, including even sexual harassment. So I've had a lot of firsthand experiences with bullying, which has really helped me when I'm going out there as an anti-bullying activist.
Now, as I mentioned, you were able to channel some of those experiences and turn it into something good. How did you make that transition? Like, what steps did you take to go from that point to creating a club at your school and transitioning into what you're working on now?
Yeah, well, so it wasn't exactly a club at my school. It was a project that I handled on my own. So what happened was I was going into my senior year of high school, and I had gotten an email from my school. They usually send out emails in the beginning of the summer times like, hey, there's all these internships and these jobs that you can take on, which will boost up your resume. And there was kind of at the bottom, there was like, oh, and by the way, there's this activism club. This activism camp. This activism camp that's it's going to be 1 week, and it's going to be over in, I think it was in Pescadero at the time. And so I was like, activism? Well, that sounds interesting. Like, and for 1 week, sure, why not? Why don't I go ahead and apply? I knew I wanted to do something about anti-bullying. I just wasn't sure how to start or where to begin. I didn't know if one person had any power over this very large scale problem. I wrote it down my platform. Ideally I would like to work on anti-bullying, and I got the email back saying, congratulations, you've been accepted. I was like, okay. So I went there for a week, and over at YA camp, YA camp, Youth Empowered Action Camp. It's a camp for young change makers between the ages of 12 and 17. So it was right at that was my last spot. That was my last time to take up on this opportunity. I learned a lot about different issues that were going on in the world. So at the end of the camp, you would be matched up with a counselor who was already an established activist. So you would be matched up with somebody, and you would create a program or some sort of campaign that you can take home with you, and they follow up with you throughout the rest of the year, see how you were doing and if they could help you in any way. I learned a lot of skills there, and then I met up with my mentor. Her name was Leanne, and I told her, I really want to work on this issue. I know it's a problem because it's happening not just to me, but to my friends as well, and to other people that I don't know personally. So I know it's a problem in our system and not just something that just happened to me. Part of our graduation requirements in that school, you're supposed to give a speech to your entire high school, including teachers and administration. So we decided that I would use that opportunity to talk about anti-bullying. And she recommended me some literature, and I did some research on my own for, age appropriate literature on bullying for each of the grades. And so by the time I finished high school, I had talked to the deans of each grade, and I had given them books that I said, I read this book and it talks about bullying, and I think this would be great in your English class, or maybe this book in your wellness class. We had PE and wellness together, so this would be a great time to talk about bullying here. I tried to work with teachers and administration to see how we could implement that in our school before I left. Once that was done, I didn't want to stop. I wanted to continue my work, and that's how I'm still working on anti-bullying to this day.
From your experiences, what do you think are the primary challenges in preventing bullying from continuing to spread?
There are too many bystanders in both kids and adults. A lot of adults feel that kids will be kids, girls will be girls, which I've actually been told before. That kind of thinking allows this behavior to continue and even thrive. My mom is a first grade teacher, and in her school, they have Project Cornerstone, I believe, and they come and they talk to the students and they teach the kids, there's three parts of the bullying equation. There's the perpetrator, there's the victim, and then there's also the bystander. And here's what you can do so that, you don't allow this to happen, because it creates a toxic school environment. It's not safe or healthy for anybody. And then they also teach the teachers. They target the teachers and they teach them this is how you can step in and diffuse a situation. So I think bystanders is one. Another one would be also to educate parents. Parents also seem to believe kids will be kids. They're just teasing. And then when we allow it to just be, oh, it's just teasing, that's how it grows into something bigger and worse. And we need to target it right at the seed before it, bursts into something possibly uncontrollable. Targeting bystanders, parents. Also, another challenge is a lack of policy in schools or a lack of enforcement of those policies. There are schools that have written down in the book, like we don't allow discrimination or harassment of any type. However, in practice, that may not always be the case. Part of the challenge is how do we make sure that schools hold up their end of the deal in providing a safe learning environment for kids of all ages.
Going back to parents, in the ones that feel like, hey, this is just kids being kids, and maybe they truly do feel like that, where is the line? Because obviously kids are going to act different than adults. Some adults obviously act worse than children. I think we both know that. But where can they know that line is? Where should they step in? Or how can they educate their kids to step in where it's not just playfulness or kids being kids, but it's harmful behavior?
So, when you're in the car, you're driving the kids to, maybe you're carpooling them to school or just soccer practice or whatever. Watch how they're talking to each other and watch how one of the kids responds. If they seem a little excited and talkative kid suddenly kind of starts getting a little quieter, starts shutting down a little bit, it might be because something that someone has said might have hurt them. In general, in my experience, teasing most of the time it hurts another person. It's not just playfulness. Most of the time it does end up hurting somebody. What might be funny to you might not be funny to another person. And when we're making jokes, we want to be sure that we're laughing. You know what they told us in elementary school? You laugh with the person, not at them.
And you mentioned school policies and making sure they enforce. Are there other things that schools can do better to prevent bullying among their students?
A lot of the bullying situations for me actually happen inside the classroom. They have happened in Spanish classrooms, in history classrooms, in math, and the teachers, not all of them, of course, but those teachers, I would look at them, and with this, I was kind of hoping I could somehow transfer a message to them, like, help me, because I didn't want to say it out loud. I was too scared to say it out loud. would just look back right at me. They would just stare back at me. Looking back now, that's just incredibly wrong. That should not happen to anybody. And a lot of times teachers have come up to me, they used to come up to me in middle and high school, and they'd be like, I just wanted to let you know that I heard this in the hallway, but I didn't step in. And it's like, well, why didn't you step in? Like, for example, apparently one time during lunch, there were a group of girls. Apparently they went through the alphabet and matched a letter with everything that was wrong with me. B for Paula's big nose, which I've always been very self-conscious about. A Spanish teacher told me, I heard this in the classroom, I heard this in the hallway, and I would have liked it if she had stepped in and said, that's not okay. I know she's not here, but this is just like gossiping or teasing, and this hurts. It's not just damaging to that person, it's damaging to the entire school environment, really. You're contributing to an unhealthy learning environment. Teaching teachers how that not to be afraid to step in there and be like, this is wrong, make a stand and say, this is not how we do things around here.
And I always find this to be a real difficult aspect of the conversation around bullying. Where does perseverance come into play? Because obviously each student shouldn't have to be their only advocate and stop everything that's happening, or just be told that, oh, you just need to man up, or, you just need to deal with it. But where does perseverance come into play? Is there a way that we can help other students deal with it better while getting them the help they need when it comes to bullying?
Right. No, absolutely. The thing with perseverance is that this is something that you have to grow. The best way for a kid to become more perseverant is if they have an adult, at least one person telling them, you are special, you are necessary, you are unique and loved, and you're a vital part of our community. We need to teach our kids that there are people who have gone on to do amazing things in this world, and they were bullied. That starts to make a kid think, I am stronger than this. I have goals, I have dreams, and I'm going to wait this out, or maybe I'm going to move schools or move friend groups until I find that place where I am safe and I can thrive.
We got two last questions here. The first is, what can social networks do better to prevent cyberbullying? Because a big piece of this, and we hear about this a lot, is that, well, as a social network, a lot of the beginnings of bullying that we don't see, that we don't touch, because a lot of cyberbullying is carryover from things that happen in person. Now, not all of it, but a lot of it is. What do you see as ways that social networks can better help stop bullying online?
Absolutely. The stuff that happens online is because it's being carried over by what's happening in person. Maybe not exactly face to face, because I've had people say things to me and behind my back, but it is happening physically. I think social networks could crack down harder on reports of bullying. I know they have options, where people can report or flag something, and that's a great start. But for example, within the Team Grimmy, that's what we call ourselves, the group. Within the Team Grimmy group, there's a girl who's 14 years old who's being bullied. She was posting on her Instagram, on her private Instagram, screenshots of emails that a group of girls from her school were sending her. And then she had also posted, there's a video that they posted telling me to hurt myself. Oh. And so me being the anti-bullying activist that I am, I reported that video multiple times. I even called the company. Going through the process was so hard. There were so many steps. Like, she was not she's 14 years old. She's super depressed. She's incapable of doing any of this stuff. So we, as her family, had to try and help her. It was completely unnecessary steps to try to stop this. And in the end, the response I got was, well, because you're not the person being bullied, we can't help you. It's great that we have the flagging, reporting buttons that allow the community to report things, but we have to make this process simpler. It was a month of me trying to reach the company, telling them, like, there's a video telling this person to seriously hurt herself. This isn't good for her or the community, the viewing community in general. I think that's something social networks can do, make it easier for anybody, not just the person who's being bullied, because sometimes, they can't help themselves. And it's not.
Yeah, or as you mentioned, sometimes they're not on that network.
Exactly.
And not to brag, but after school, I believe we were one of the first to have one-click reporting. So when a post is flagged and reported, it is removed from the entire feed with a single report.
That's perfect. That's exactly what we need. Exactly that.
And so last question here, what are you working on now? What does the future hold for Paula?
Yeah, well, anti-bullying is always going to be something that I hold close to my heart, and that's always going to be my passion. But I'm interested in other things too, like women's rights, especially anti-rape and anti-sexual assault work and equality. I'm also interested in animal rights and the environment and a lot of other activism subject areas in activism and in other topics that are, other issues that are going on. I'm a recent grant recipient for the 2017 year of Belief Young Changemakers under the age of 24 by the Pollination Project. They are a grant-giving organization that gives grants to young activists like me, like myself, and all around the world. So with that grant money, I'm going to hold kind of I like to call it a kind of mini conference. It will be one evening. It's called Speak Up, Stand Up, Becoming a Changemaker. And I'm going to have it at a local community college, and it will be open not just for students, but for the greater community to come, and it will be a free event where I'm getting speakers from different activist organizations. They're going to come talk about issues that are going on either locally or nationwide, and hopefully my goal through something like this is to spark something in a person. They might not all leave being like, yeah, I want to be an activist, but they might leave this event thinking, I think I want to get involved. I think I want to make a change somehow. The goal is not just to educate them, though; it's also to connect them to those organizations. So hopefully they'll be not just educated on these topics, but also they will also be able to come out with concrete actions if they would like. What can I do next? That's one. Another one is I just, and by just, I mean like maybe a couple weeks ago, I am now part of the Give More Hugs Ambassador Program. Give More Hugs is an organization that helps kids from low SES school environments, flourish and do better in school, whether it's by donating books and helping them to read or other things like that. I'm one of 20 high schoolers and college students in this program, and I will actually be starting a music program at a school, undetermined yet which school, but I will start a music program at a school where they have cut their music program, and I want to bring it back. Because music is so important to me, not just because it's played a role in, surviving the bullying situation, but, it's always been a passion of mine ever since I was a little kid. I'm a psychology major. Study after study has shown the amazing effects that music has on a developing child's mind. And so to cut that because of lack of funding, it's sad. It's such a shame, I really want to give these kids a creative outlet. Hopefully they'll find that instrument that, they'll want to continue and pursue for the rest of their lives.
That's fantastic. Well, congratulations and great work with everything you're doing. Thanks again for joining me and sharing with our audience. You're doing very important work, and it's sure to help the lives of many. So on behalf of everyone, thank you.
Thank you
and
so
keep
much
up the
for
great work.
having me on. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Thank you.